So welcome to Organization Behavior, OBR250. And what I'm going to do in the second half here, I'm just going to make a short video on introduction to chapters 8, 9, and 10. So keep in mind, I'm not going to talk about every single item in chapters 8, 9, and 10. It is your responsibility to look through the PowerPoints that I've posted on Blackboard. And also, if you need to, more information, you can always read the textbook that's online. Okay, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight some of the important concepts in chapters 8, 9, and 10. And I'm going to do it by asking you some questions, trying to get you involved. Okay, so organization behavior, starting with chapter 8. Okay, now in chapter 8, the topic is communication. All right, communication. According to a 2019 survey of 1,000 singles, what do you think was the number one mistake on a first date? Okay, the number one mistake on a first date. A, too shy, not talking enough. Or B, talking too much. Or C, poor listening, checking your phone too often. Okay, what do you think? Well, if you chose C, poor listening, checking your phone too often, you are right. Because in the survey, 69% of men and 70% of women thought that it was disrespectful to be checking your phone instead of interacting with the person you should be trying to get to know, right? So in communication, one of the skills that is highlighted in chapter 8 is active listening, okay? I'm going to give you a self-evaluation in one of your assignments because active listening is so important in work relationships in the organization, if you're the boss, and also with your coworkers, and of course in dating. You know, I still remember when I was back in university years ago, there was this guy I knew, and he was really popular with the girls. I couldn't figure out why. I mean, the guy was not especially good looking. He wasn't tall or anything. He was just an average kind of guy. And yet all these girls liked him. And I couldn't figure out why until one day I saw him in the common area at my university interacting with a girl, and then I knew his secret. And his secret was active listening. He was employing the principles that you see on the slide. He was maintaining interest. Okay, he was maintaining, oh, sorry. He was maintaining interest. He was showing that he was interested. He wasn't interrupting her. Sometimes guys are so interested in talking about themselves, but no, this guy was listening to her. He was empathizing with her. He was asking her questions. He was leaning forward. He was nodding his head. So really, he was taking an interest in the girl. And then I realized that was a secret. Because studies have shown that when a man is interested and listens actively and is deemed as a good listener, he's deemed as more attractive by the woman. Okay, so you keep that in mind. Now, speaking of dating, where is the best place to meet a partner suitable for a relationship? Now, this is before the pandemic. Work, school or college, or see online? Now, this question I ask you is because in communication in chapter 8, we talk about the importance of how technology has changed communication. And so the correct answer here would actually be C, online. Okay, and you see the survey. It was done by Stanford University, and it's quite interesting. You know, it was done in 19. They did a survey in 1995. Okay, 1995, and then again 22 years later in 2017. And you see what a difference some 22 years made. You know, look back in 1995. Okay, online was 2% of how people met, but you jump fast forward 20 some years later, and 39% meet online. And I think that now in 2021, I think even more meet online. So one of the important concepts in chapter 8 is how technology has changed the way we communicate, you know, through dating and in work. And it shows you the decline at work, if you look at work, it was 19%, not a whole lot back in 1995, but it's even less now in 2017. And school, unfortunately, you look at school, in 1995 it was 19%, but now back in today in 2017 it's even less at 9%. Now I found that interesting. And now hopefully you'll have better luck here at Seneca College. But the idea is that technology has changed the way we communicate, whether for dating or at work. We've got email and we've got now we have Zoom and this technology that we have has changed the way we communicate. Okay, so chapter 8 is about communication. Chapter 9 is about groups and teams. And let me ask you this question here. Teams, which are groups with goals, always make better decisions than the individual. Now, is that true or is that false? What do you think? Well, if you choose false, you're right. Because the key here is that it's not always. It really depends. And what it depends on is sometimes it depends on who's got expertise in your group. Because sometimes some people have a certain amount of expertise in your group. So group members make better decisions if, for example, there's some group members that have some expertise that can contribute to the group. Otherwise, if everybody's ignorant, it doesn't matter. You're not going to make any better decisions with a group. The other thing is, they have to be willing to share their ideas and also be willing to listen. And again, group influence can be positive and it can be negative. It can cut both ways. Especially, you think about peer pressure with teenagers to drink and do all other kinds of things, even driving. There was an experiment that was done where young teens were put on a video driving game. And they tested them on that driving game when they were by themselves and also when they had their friends watching them. And what they found was that the young teens ran about 40% more yellow lights and had 60% more crashes when they knew their friends were watching. You see, that's interesting. We drive more recklessly, especially young people, when you're with a group, because they kind of encourage you to drive recklessly. And that's why in Ontario, that if you're under 18, they have restrictions on your driver's license that you can't take more than one passenger unless they are family members, because they know that when young teens are with their friends, they drive more recklessly. The group can influence us in different ways. In a famous experiment, it's called the Asch experiment. And what participants were asked to do was to match the line, the line on the right, exhibit 1, with the line on exhibit 2. And now, if you look at this graph here, you can see it's obviously A. But suppose other people in your group would choose C. Would you still choose A or would you go along with the group? Okay, and they wanted to find out. And again, this was done back in the 60s. And here's a 2-minute video, and I'm going to even stop before 2 minutes to see what actually happens. Now, keep in mind here, only one person is the real subject. The others are just actors, and they're told to match the wrong line. But of course, the participant, the real person, the real subject, he doesn't know that. So let's take a look at what happens here. Okay, so let's take a look at what happens here. Remember, this was done in the 1960s. So
the Asch experiment is one of psychology's oldest and most popular pieces of research. A volunteer is told that he's taking part in a visual perception test. What he doesn't know is that the other participants are actors, and he's the only person taking part in the real test, which is actually about group conformity.
Please begin. The experiment you will be taking part in today involves the perception of line length. Your task will be simply to look at the line here on the left and indicate which of the 3 lines on the right is equal to it in length. So, for example,
the actors have been told to match the wrong lines. The volunteer will be monitored to see if he gives the correct answer or if he goes along with the opinion of the group and gives the wrong answer. In the first test, the correct answer is 2.
One. 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 Two.
One. Once again, the correct answer is 2.
Three. 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 Three.
3.
So you see what happens there. You know, at first the guy said the right answer, but then the second time around he goes along with the group, even though he knew it was the wrong answer, right? And he continues to do that with the other. They continued on in this experiment, and so this experiment has been repeated again and again. It has been done in modern times, and more often than not, they find that most people, not everyone, but most people will actually, in the end, go along with the group. So in chapter 8, we emphasize how important the group is and how it influences our decision making, whether for good or for bad. Okay. Now we move on now to the next chapter, chapter 10. And chapter 10 talks about conflict management. And essentially, we've got 5 different styles of conflict management here. Starting with the far right, we've got accommodation or yielding. Then we've got collaboration or problem solving here. In the middle, you've got compromise. And then on the bottom left here, you've got avoidance. And then on the right, on the bottom, we've got competition or forcing. Okay, now I want you to think about which conflict style you prefer. Okay, I mean, think about some conflicts you've had either with your parents, either with fellow students, maybe you work, maybe with your coworker, or even with your boss, or your boyfriend, girlfriend, or your husband or wife. How do you handle conflicts? Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to think about some questions, and we're going to look at some questions I want you to answer. Okay, now the first question is this one. All right, is this you? I push for my own ideas and preferences. I fight for what I want. So, would you say that's me most of the time, or B sometimes, or C hardly ever? Okay. Now, if you chose A most of the time, you prefer the forcing or competition style. You know, this is the win lose. I win and you lose, and you must give me what I want. You know, you try to force your opinions on others. And is this a good style? Well, sometimes it can be useful, especially if we're dealing with a situation where we have objections, like a moral objection, like if the other side is doing something unethical or harmful, okay, then we really certainly have to uh, sometimes push our ways. Otherwise, you know, it could cause the harm of the organization, right? But keep in mind that the downfall with this is that it often leads to poor relationships. If you're always forcing your way, chances are a lot of people aren't going to want to do business with you. Okay, um, so and they're going to, well, you won't be very popular. Let's put, and you won't be very much liked. Okay, so keep that in mind. So that's one style, the forcing style. Now let's go take a look at this next style. Is this you? I give the other party what they want rather than fighting. I sacrifice my wants to end the conflict. Now, what do you choose? Most of the time, A, B sometimes, or C hardly ever? Well, if you chose most of the time here, you prefer the yielding accommodation style. This is where I lose, you win. Basically, you give in to what other people want. You can have what you want. All right. Now, is this style useful? Well, can you think of a time when you use this style and when it would be useful? Well, I think sometimes if you have a situation where maybe the issue is not so important to you, but it's more important to the other person, well, yielding might be the right way to go. I still remember when my wife and we were buying a new car, and you know, I like blue. She wanted red. But I thought to myself, it really doesn't matter to me what color the car is. So I just basically let her have her own way. For better relationships, I give in, I accommodating. So again, if you're arguing with your boss at work or have a conflict with your boss at work, you might be better off just kind of accommodating your boss unless you want to find another job. Okay, so sometimes accommodation and yielding can be useful, but not always, right? Because otherwise you never get your needs met. Okay, now what about this next style here? I try to delay or avoid solving the disagreement. I avoid communicating with the people I have conflict with. All right, do you do that most of the time? Well, if you choose most of the time on this one, well, you prefer the style of avoidance. That's lose-lose because we never get the issue resolved. We both lose, really. You just say, I don't want to talk about it. Okay. Women hate it when their boyfriends or when their boyfriends or their husbands say, I just don't want to talk about it. And they just hate that, because nothing gets resolved, And now, is this style ever useful? Well, maybe if you're dealing with somebody that you really, really don't like and you don't care about, and maybe having an argument just isn't worth it, and sometimes having an argument can make the relationship even worse. So maybe sometimes avoiding can possibly be a reasonable alternative, but again, not always. Now let's take a look at this next style. I make sure that both sides give in a little. I work towards a 50-50 compromise. Is that you? Now, a lot of people like this because this is the compromise. And this, sometimes I call this no win, no lose, because it's the idea of, I give up some of what I want and you give up some of what you want. Now, sometimes we meet in the middle, and sometimes we can come up with a reasonable solution. The problem is that both sides may not get what they really want, and that could be a problem with compromising. All right, how about this final style here? I try to creatively find a solution that will satisfy both my interests and the other parties. I want both sides to benefit without having to give up something they really want. Now, if you choose most of the time here, well, you prefer the problem solving or collaboration style. And this is, again, we call this win-win. And again, a lot of people like this because, we creatively find a solution that makes us both happy without either of us giving up what we want. Now, you can imagine this might be the preferred solution, but again, it's not always the best style in every situation because it's not good if you're dealing with somebody that you can't trust. This is a situation where, if you're dealing with somebody that you just don't trust at all, it's not a good solution here. Also, if you have limited time, this doesn't work because this takes a long time to deal with. Okay, so collaboration, problem solving, yes, it is good, but sometimes we have limits on this. So, is there a best style? Well, the answer is no. Strategy really depends on the party you're dealing with. If you're a parent and you're dealing with young children, well, a lot of times you're going to have to use the forcing style because as a parent, you know what's best for your young children and they don't, okay? So again, in conflict management, there is no right way, okay? The collaborative style has the potential to be most effective in different situations. And again, it's a preferred style if we can do it. But many managers just prefer to be forcing. This is what we should do. I'm the boss. Do what I say. And then the people on the bottom, well, sometimes they avoid the manager. Sometimes they'll give the manager what he wants, and sometimes they work towards compromise. So again, different styles for different situations, and see what suits you the best. So I hope this gives you an interesting introduction to OBR for chapters 8, 9, and 10. Again, I want you to go and look at the PowerPoints in more detail and also read portions of the book if you need more information.